policies, let's look at 1992. 1992 Constitution and Separation of Powers. The 1992 Constitution created 3 arms of government as existed under the previous Constitution, but executive powers were given to the President as pertained under the 1979 Constitution, which is perceived to have marginalized the legislature and the judiciary. A host of appointments are made by the President under the Constitution. The President appoints public office holders acting in accordance with the advice of the Governing Council in question in consultation with Public Services Commission, Article 185(1) of the Constitution. He can also dismiss them without the advice of Governing Council in question. It would be ideal if that consultation would take place before Parliament can dismiss public office holders he has appointed in consultation with Public Services Commission, but that is not the case. It will be if there will be any amendment to the Constitution, it should consider placing further on the President's power to dismiss without consulting the body or bodies whose advice was sought before the appointment was made. Ministers of State are appointed by the President with the prior approval of Parliament. Majority of ministers shall be appointed from among members of Parliament. Article 78 of the Constitution. The President appoints deputy ministers in consultation with the Minister of State with the prior approval of Parliament. The President also appoints the Chairman and members of the independent, constitutional, and other bodies, namely the Commission for Human Rights and Administrative Justice and its deputies, the Auditor General, the District Assembly from the Public Operations, the National Council for Higher Education, or any other law in consultation with the Council of State, acting on the advice of the Council of State. The importance of the independent constitutional bodies was to control the unrestrained powers of the executive and to deepen the nation's democracy. The objective for creating the independent constitutional bodies will be defeated, where the President has unfettered powers to dismiss them without assigning any reason. The independent constitutional bodies whose chairperson and members they were created to perform. The President is also responsible for the appointment of the Chief Justice, acting in consultation with the Council of State with the approval of Parliament. The Supreme Court judges are also appointed by the President, acting on the advice of the Judicial Council, in consultation with the Council of State and with the approval of Parliament. The other justices of the Superior Court and the Chairman of Regional Tribunals are appointed by the President, acting on the advice of the Judicial Council. Now we are going to look at what entails on the advice to be offered. On the question as to whether or not the President in making an appointment to the Superior Court was bound by the advice of the Judicial Council, the Supreme Court held that the President cannot make such appointment without seeking the advice of the Judicial Council, but the advice offered by the Judicial Council shall not have a binding effect on the President. The President is not bound to appoint a person recommended by the Judicial Council for appointment as a Justice of the Superior Court. The Supreme Court further held that the appointment made on the advice of the Judicial Council and in consultation with the Council of State and approval by Parliament places further on the power of the President to appoint Supreme Court judges. By parity of reason, the role played by the Judicial Council in the appointment of other justices of the Superior Court is meant to be a restraint on the appointing powers of the President. The question that agitates the mind of people is, how would the President know persons who are competent to be appointed as justices of the Superior Court, particularly where the President was not a practicing lawyer or is not a lawyer? Consideration is likely to inform the President's appointment and may influence the judge's decision, except where the judge is firm and able to uphold the judicial oath.
Technical leadership. Again, the unresolved issues around election and appointment, capacity for collaboration, and also if we could even performance contract them. And when we do, what are the sanctions? And then also the issue of representation, the capacity and performance of our assembly members. Mr. Chairman, I already indicated that there were concerns about the role of the regions. Even though Act 936 tries to elaborate what they should do and how they should be funded, a problem we had for about 15, 20 years since the passage of the Local Government Act, there are still challenges. There are still challenges. For instance, when you have an assertive regional minister in a capital city of a region, where does he begin and where does the chief executive end? So So that sometimes you see, conflicting concerns about who is doing what where, so that there's that tension there. So what is my 2 penny bits or my 2 peswa bit in this regard? Should we have new models or incremental nips and tucks? Over the 3 decades that we have been trying to implement the assembly system, the world has not stood still. There's a changing context. In the first place, internationalization is upon us, and the global standards are required. People expect Accra to perform as maybe London would, Amsterdam would, but at least people want a modicum of services. They are the expectations of Ghanaians, their residents, and their rights. And because of access to information, the public is more discerning and more demanding. There's increasing urbanization. Right now, Ghana is slightly more urbanized than rural. The issues of migration and making cities work. Living up to standards, the SDG standards, Africa's Agenda 2063, the imperative of climate change, the changing nature of security threats, even health security threats like the pandemic, the COVID pandemic. How did our local authorities respond? Emerging issues of human rights, and then diversity, the human population dynamics and diversity. We talk about the youth bulge, the demographic dividend. And if you look at what local authorities are doing, they are trying to implement national plans. But initiatives of their own for their young people there are largely absent. And so all of these things are happening. And in addition to being made to work, they have to hit the ground running and perform. So we require a political model that increases accountability obligation, reduces impunity and opportunities for correction, more effective representation and feedback, and working complaints, grievance, and redress systems. We also, in relation to technocratic structures, require a dedicated local government service where staff members are motivated, have opportunities for self-development, and can be innovative, and will be rewarded for their creativity and responsiveness. We need, as a matter of urgency, some legislative action to correct some of the gaps that I mentioned earlier. But we need to decentralize human resources management further to the district level. But the argument is that they can't leave a local government staff member to the whims and caprices of a politician. So if that's the case, we have to strengthen performance management systems, we have to strengthen complaints and grievances processes, and use it to protect the staff. Technology has come. We should help them to use it for working, for communication, reporting, and analysis, and clarifying their staff progression pathways. Mr. Chairman, I do have recommendations around revenue issues and around protecting the demographic dividend. Go to private sector investment. Right now, even though we talk about district level economic development, you can see the heavy hand of the state in it. So the impetus for local innovative collaboration and private sector development has been stifled somewhat in my view. Again, we need to provide infrastructural support for local operators, service facilities, using solar energy, being innovative, and requiring accountability on the use of locally generated revenues. Mr. Chairman, in relation to promoting democratic engagement, if anybody has the time and they look at Act 936, particularly sections 40 to 48, elaborate mechanisms, provisions for deliberations, use of mass media, engagement before proceedings. Section 42 outlines modalities for platforms, participation, petitioning rights. 44 obligates assemblies to acknowledge petitions, give timelines for responses. 45 requires the DC to report on efforts, and so on. And General said, just elaborate. If we can make these things work even to 50%, my belief is that we will see further stimulation of effort. And it is important that every local government ensures that its systems of engagement are accessible, secure, and inclusive. Mr. Chairman, the opportunity cost of the people's time. The woman will tell you, I need to go to my phone. I can't go and sit down. Because they will not see what you have to offer them. If it were a church and all night, they would have gone. So what is it? Why can't they invest in you? Mr. Chairman, the topical issue of the election of chief executives and multi-party competition in local governments. All of us are witnesses to the efforts in 2018 to amend Articles 55(3) and 2431 of the Constitution, and the difficulties it ran into with resistance from key stakeholder groups, particularly in Parliament and the traditional authorities. But the manifestos of the key political parties promised a revisit of the issue. Still with us. And the various efforts they have been, and you see, it's interesting because with every regime, you see the chief surge in and then say, I mean, depending on the, if you look at it and you study it carefully. But we need to acknowledge that traditional authority structures are still relevant for Ghanaians. The various surveys that some Afro-Barometer and so on indicate that they are probably trusted more than the local authorities. Our people go to them. They mobilize our people, they control natural resources, they exercise moral suasion and social control and arbitration. Whether governments like it or not, they have the influence, mandate, and tenure. Interestingly, the chieftaincy institute is reinventing itself for relevance. You're seeing them in the forefront of discussions around climate change, natural resource management, social protection, social development, and so on. Therefore, we have to find a place in the system for them. There have been concerns from the traditional authorities side about the inadequacy of the current provisions for them in the local government system. More information. As I speak, there's a coalition of CSOs engaging and consulting, seeking to build consensus on what Ghanaians really want. So how do we ameliorate the partisan influences of the assembly system? How do we ensure that underserved sections like women, persons with disabilities, and so on are properly represented?